مساء الخير والسلام عليكم. شكرا ست نور على المقدمة الرائعة عن العلاقة بين الدين والتنمية، وشكرا على مقدمة الشخصية بالنسبة لي. راح أتكلم باللغة الإنجليزية واعذروني على هالموضوع. أتمنى كنت أن أتحدث باللغة العربية، لكن بعض المصطلحات يمكن تكون صعبة شوي علي. So I'm very delighted to be with you today and have this opportunity to discuss an important nexus that is often overlooked or underplayed by national governments and even international organizations. The nexus we're talking about today is the nexus between the environment and the freedom of religion or belief. No one can deny that the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution is a reality that everyone is witnessing. It affects both emerging and developed countries, the affluent and the poor, as well as the natural resources on which we all rely. Religion and culture can play an important role in addressing the triple planetary crisis. Collaboration by the whole of society, including decision makers, religious leaders, and indigenous and local people, is required to address environmental challenges. It is now more important than ever to promote and apply principles, values, behaviors, and innovative solutions that will lead to the achievement of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. This global agenda of 2030, as well as the increasing awareness of the common understanding of religions on environmental ethics, may serve as the foundation of a shared vision that strengthens the role of religion and culture in attaining sustainability. The question now is, how can we bring science and culture and religion together? Cultural and religious diversity can assist society in finding long-term answers to today's problems. Cultural, religious, and environmental diversity are all vital aspects of humanity's collective journey and the evolution of civilizations. Interfaith and intercultural discourse can converge on a few concepts, including the fact that nature is holy and that nature has rights, both of which are shared by most organized religions. Freedom of religion or belief, or what is known as FORB, and environmental protection are interdependent in such a way that environmental degradation destroys our sacred connection with the earth, violating the right to freedom of religion or belief. Equally, freedom of religion or belief violations undermine communities' resilience for nature protection. Climate change may alter and threaten religious beliefs and traditions. For example, in various African cultures, changes in weather patterns of farming and cultivation have led to changes in the seasons of rituals and festival of religions. For the Sabian Mandian, or what is called the Asabi al-Mindaniyun in Iraq, water plays a central role and temples must be built near water courses. With rivers drying up, this presents challenges for the survival of these traditions. In accordance with the IPCC definition, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, of vulnerability, many religious and ethnic minorities are considered as the most vulnerable groups to the impacts of climate change. Minorities face persecution and discrimination, which expose them to conditions of injustice, inequality, impunity, and instability, keeping them on the margins of the society. These conditions limit their access to poverty reduction initiatives, employment, health services, land ownership, housing, and education. Minorities have less access to political opportunities and public participation. For minorities who already face existing vulnerabilities, their vulnerabilities will increase due to the impacts of environmental degradation. Climate change impacts are felt constantly in their everyday lives and routines as they rely on natural resources for survival. Often, women in religious minorities are particularly disadvantaged, subject to intersectional marginalizations, inequalities, and discrimination because of their minority affiliation as well as their gender. Minority and indigenous groups are not only disadvantaged when disasters hit, but also in the aftermath due to the implicit or explicit discrimination in emergency aid practices, structures, and reach. In India, for instance, the Dalitis and Muslims were not only the worst hit by the severe monsoon floods in 2007, but they were last to get emergency relief, whether because aid workers were not aware of their needs or because they consciously prioritized other communities. Even in developed countries, similar disparities have played out in the wake of disasters, including Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, Sandy in New Jersey in 2012, Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico in 2017, with minorities worst affected. However, people's religious beliefs and practices can play an important role in terms of strengthening social bonds and sense of community. In southern Sudan, for example, women from minorities have played a positive role during the conflict by reaching across tribal divides. Wives of tribal leaders have pushed their husbands to reconcile with their opponents. Therefore, decision makers are key players in the immediate and long-term recovery efforts, given their power to enact laws and oversee government policy. While legislation and policymaking are key drivers for economic recovery, they are also important factors for addressing the environmental impacts of religious or on religious minorities. While each country may have its own unique circumstances and considerations, considering the multiculturalism to capture the heterogeneous realities of religious minorities instead of assimilation can help drive a sustainable global economic recovery. This work must become systemic, however, and institutional, and a commitment by national states and international organizations. We must address international or intentional and unintentional inequalities and discriminatory practices towards minorities and vulnerable groups. Education is also very important to ensure promoting religious and cultural diversity. Religions or religious institutions own more than 50% of schools worldwide, thus can have and must give attention to religious minorities in education and awareness on climate change adaptation, early warning, and ecosystem restoration. Human rights, including, of course, freedom of religion or belief, and the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment mechanisms are useful for holding decision makers to account where climate law has fewer legally binding options. With today's technologies in communications, there's no reason why indigenous and local communities should be considered marginalized, but should be supported to sustain their livelihoods in an environmentally sound manner. The means of implementation, as described in SDG 17, are vital signs of commitment by countries to make it happen. There is a need to work with the United Nations to design special guidance materials to ensure that the intersectionality between freedom of religion or belief and environmental sustainability is tackled before, during, and after environmental related disasters. In the past 5 to 6 years, we have been seeing an exponential increase in the number of faith-based organizations that are working on environmental issues from a religious perspective. For example, the number of faith-based organizations accredited to UNEP has increased from 4 in 2017 to 62 in 2023. Some of these organizations have a huge base of followers and massive networks that can be mobilized in promoting the intersectional linkages between FORB and climate change. UNEP's Faith for Earth is establishing a global coalition of faith leaders, youth, scientists, and FBOs. This coalition is a platform to bring FORB and climate change issues to the forefront of faith actors. However, lack of good data and statistics might hinder any meaningful collaboration. Thus, we need to work with scientists and religious scholars to conduct more focused research to quantify the size and scope of these intersections. I hope that I have provided some food for thought in linking FORB and the environment. And of course, I would be happy to hear more from you and learn about your ideas. Thank you very much.